This is the Outlap F1 podcast featuring America's own Cody, Andy, and Deanna. Your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. Join us on the Outlap. We're back. If you thought we were gone, you are wrong, folks. We are back. It is the Outlap F1 podcast. I am proud to say that this is season 8, episode number 1 of that Outlap F1 podcast. It's our Australian GP preview. 100 and something plus days since the checkered flag fell in Abu Dhabi. We go at it again. The cars are all new. The rules are kind of weird. We're going to try to all learn them together. Sometimes you just turn the car on and see what the hell it does. We've got some cars that look pretty good. We've got a lot of sandbagging. We're going to talk a lot about the testing that we saw. There's a whole heap to get into it, but you've got Andy. I am still here. And as always, my good and esteemed colleague, Mr. Cody. It is good to see you once again. Talking F1, we've met each other a few times over the break, but other than that, how's it been going? Did you have a good off season? And y'all psyched for this weekend?
I am so psyched. I've been looking forward to this for months, and ever since testing and seeing all the new cars and how different they are and how we made it to this point, we still don't really know who's going to be best. It just makes it that much more exciting. It's been a great break, but it has been, as you'd expect, devoid of F1. So I've been trying to get my fix. I've listened to so many other podcasts and watched so much testing analysis that I'm ready to see some actual competition, and wildly excited.
Yeah, it's finally time for the teams to all stop lying. What I would classify the last, 2 months is everybody's lying to you until they can't. And there's been a whole lot of stuff going on in the background that might explain some of it. We're going to talk about part of that. The big thing was the Mercedes engine and what's been going on with that. And that rule has finally been put to some sort of at least conclusion, although the first 7 races we're going to have one set of rules, and then we're going to transition to a different set of rules. So the more things change, the more they stay the same. It's like last year with the Flexi Wing thing all over again, but we're going to get into all that in just a little bit. But if you have found our show, and I apologize that I have not been very active on social media this past few months. Everything's okay. No health issues, no health scares or anything like that. It's just been my full-time income producing job has just been a bit of a nightmare over the course of the past 3 months. Changing an ERP system from one that you knew how it thought and I could tell you what every screen did, and something that I've worked with for 20 years, and going to something that's completely different. It's a thing. And it doesn't allow for a lot of posting on social media when you're trying to be concentrating on what you're doing. But that said, I have been watching. I've been paying attention. I've been taking mental notes. I've been taking real notes. So some of it is we're probably going to get through, and we'll talk a little bit about it. But we're glad you're here if you have found the show. We will be getting back to some form of, hopefully, cadence with Twitter, Instagram, or X, or whatever they call that thing now, Discord, Reddit, and of course here on YouTube. At Outlap F1 Podcast is still the handle for all of that place, or for all of those places. If you do enjoy what you're looking at, or you enjoy what you're hearing, if you're on YouTube and you'd like to give us a like, a subscribe, comment, I think that's what the common phrase is. Like, subscribe, and comment for the algorithm, dang it. It will help us come up a little bit better in search results for content like this. So we would be appreciative if you'd like to do that. You can email the show, outlapf1@gmail.com. It still works. There was some spammer that got in there that I had to unsubscribe and get a whole lot of emails out, but those thoughts will get to us. Outlap F1 Nation, It's been a while. We're glad to be in touch with you again, but thank you so much to the people who always continue to support the show. Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, who's been putting all sorts of fun stuff in my Instagram inbox that I've kind of looked through most of it. So yeah, Kevin, continue to do what you do. We love you, man. Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to join that esteemed list, I think our anchored link still works. I will have to check and make sure that it does, but we'll post it in our show notes. If you'd like to donate a little bit to the show, we'd be most appreciative if you'd like to do that. You don't have to. We're just glad you're listening. We do this because we love it. Yeah, this is not the income producing job, by the way. This is definitely just our passion project that we're working on. So with that, the particulars now out of the way. The nice thing is I can say whatever I want because there's nobody paying me to not. All right, Cody, let's see if I can actually get the sound. I was working with this earlier. Let's see. This is a constant. Have to find things in the sound. Let's see. We went. I can get it to play. Yep,
I can see
we
it in my
did.
head.
There was a lot of testing, not just the 3 days that we're used to. We had a shakedown in Barcelona where I think the best fun part of that was watching the dudes from the race podcast get shooed off the property whenever they would try to point like long cameras at the circuit to try to get a glimpse of cars.
Mm-hmm.
We had Bahrain test 1, which I would say that was a test where nothing worked. They give you your timing screen, but the timing would go out. The graphics didn't line up, and they only gave you an hour of running at the end of the day. So you really didn't know a whole lot unless you actually followed the entire day or read blogs about it. And then you got Bahrain test 2, which you actually had the full 8 hours, day running, night running, but of course it's all happening in the middle of the night for us. And of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't say right now Bahrain is in a whole different state of affairs, obviously with the events going on in the world. We just wish everybody involved in that region of the world gets through whatever is going to happen safely and comes through it okay. There is an F1 aspect to this. We're not so sure if the schedule is going to change. They've come out and said as of right now, everything is still planned to do what they want to do. But that may change. And if that changes, we'll do our best to kind of bring you the fallout of any of that as it happens. All right. Well, Cody, you were saying you were reading all the stuff on testing. You followed a lot of blogs and all sorts of stuff. Give me your 3 big points if you have them from all the testing that we watched.
Let's see here. The first big point is, as we see a lot of times at the start of new regulations, everything looks different and nobody knows what's going to work yet. So from that first Barcelona test, like you said, it was a closed test. People were getting chased away from the track. So we didn't really see much come out of that except for, a few pictures from the teams on the pit lane and some grainy track footage of the cars going around from like up on a hill somewhere. But we did get to see just how different a lot of the cars looked, especially in like the side pod area, the wing area. A lot of different concepts on the wings. As we got into later on in the testing, we saw some different concepts on how the wing, the low drag system is deployed. Most notably, Ferrari's got the weird upside down flippy wing that we don't know if they're actually going to use it or not. But that was definitely really interesting to see. You had that very brief period, couple week period of excitement where you saw, wow, that Aston Martin car looks so radically different from everything else. I wonder what's going to happen with that. I'm going to get to that in just a second.
Yeah, we will talk about that in a minute.
Yep. Second big point is also, as you said, nobody wants to give anything away. We're going through every team saying that every other team is the best and we don't have it. And then you got everyone saying, no, they're sandbagging. It seems to be that the consensus is still that Mercedes is in the best position right now. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of rumors about their power unit and how it might be uh, able to circumvent some restrictions related to, I guess it's pressure in the engine when the piston is firing
Yeah.
versus not firing, and how they might be able to work around that in some ways, because originally it was only tested when the engine was cold, and then there's rumors that things perhaps change when the engine gets hot, although that would really make the compression ratio go down, not up. So now it's coming out that maybe they just found a way to make it so that things don't expand in the engine block as much, and they're maintaining the maximum allowed ratio even when the engine is running hot. But that is only one part of these regulations. There's so much that is different this year. More electrical power, the cars are smaller, more nimble, the tires are smaller, so there's less mechanical grip. There's the whole active aero system. And some teams look great in one area and less great in another area. There's been a lot of rumor that Red Bull is really good on the energy recovery side of things. It looks like Ferrari is really good on the race start side of things because they have anticipated that the lack of the MGUH system would lead to issues with the cars starting off the line, and they maybe have gotten ahead of that, which I don't know if it's going to be as extreme in an actual race as what we saw during testing, but some of those practice starts they did were wild. It made the Ferrari look like a rocket ship. But yeah, nobody is coming clean about their advantages. If they feel that they are confidently the best car, they haven't said it.
Right.
And I think the last big point is there is still some significant concern as to how this is all going to translate into good racing, because a lot of the worries going into these regulations about the cars potentially being starved for energy at certain parts of the circuit might actually be coming true. There have been a lot of interesting ways that teams and drivers have been trying to recover energy going around the lap. You've probably, if you've been listening to any of these other podcasts or news, you've probably heard terms like super clipping and stuff like that, where cars are pretty much trying to downshift early or just turn on their energy recovery before their normal braking point, pretty much like an engine braking, really trying to recover as much energy as possible. And this was occurring at Bahrain, which, as I understand it, is supposed to be a track that's pretty good for energy recovery. And now we're going to go to Australia, which is supposed to be a track that's pretty bad for energy recovery. And very soon, assuming things are safe enough in the Middle East, we could be going to Saudi Arabia very soon, which is supposed to be even worse for that. So we might end up seeing some issues with that, with the energy management. Some of the drivers have said that these cars, while a little more fun and reactive to drive, seem to have some problems with passing, which is a tale in Formula One as old as time. And it looks like it's never going to get better. It's always going to be a problem. But yes, there could be some issues there. So I'm not 100% confident that we're going to see improved raceability here right at the very beginning, especially considering there's going to be much larger gaps between teams than we saw last year. Last year was like getting, the last couple seasons have been getting to the great part where everyone is really closing up on their competitive abilities. Now we're going to probably see a much bigger spread here, especially in the early part of the season. It already looks like there's a pretty big gap to what would have been called the top four teams, big four teams, throughout all of the testing and everybody else. So it's going to be wild, man.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really remember going into a race weekend for a long time of like, we're going to try to do predictions later, and the best synopsis I can give you is fuck if I know, because I really don't. Here's what I observed over the tests, and you have to take all of this with the almost appropriate grains of salt because there was so much of this engine compression ratio issue that was hanging over all of the testing because they didn't really resolve it until almost about a week before they got to Australia. So my observations were from the tests is that your big four are probably your still big four: Mercedes, McLaren, Red Bull, and Ferrari. Is that the order that they're in? I don't necessarily know. I think each car has shown at one point good stretches. And I think that there are also issues with that I could see with each car. All of them were locking up into that Bahrain turn 10 several times. So a lot of them were locking up into turn 1 while they were trying to get, as much onto the straight and then slam on the brakes for either energy recovery or to try to get lap time out of it, and ruining and flat spotting sets of tires. So when you would see a performance run, you really didn't know if, was that really an optimal performance run? Were the engines turned down? We don't really know. We don't know what the fuel load was. And then all of a sudden they'd go from a performance run into a long stint. So I'm like, well, you wouldn't do that in actual qualifying. So do you adjust that time down a couple tenths, up a couple tenths? It's really hard to tell. I don't really have a good sense as to how any of the cars really react to tire wear because Bahrain is such an offset track to the rest of the calendar on how it's going to affect tires. Bahrain eats tires. It just always has. It's the oldest surface that's left on the calendar. We're going now to a street circuit, which has been repaved in the last couple of years. So you would expect to see higher grip, maybe higher deg early, but as that circuit, rubbers in and everything, maybe that comes down. So I have no sense as to who's good or bad yet on their tires. We talked about you talked about the Mercedes engine compression ratio issue, which turns out to be what they're going to do is for the first 7 races, we're going to test it at the cold temperature. And then when we get to Monaco in June, we're going to then do it at cold and at hot. And like you pointed out earlier, if they do it at hot, well, is that really the trick? Because, that's what people think is the trick. But like you said, generally the compression ratio tends to get worse the hotter the engine gets. So did we have a whole bunch of people just vote against their own interest because they thought they could find the trick and they can't really do it now? Who knows? Well, all sorts of stuff going on in there. So that's kind of your top 4. I think in your midfield, Williams didn't make the first test because they couldn't get they couldn't pass all their crash tests. So that put them behind. I would say your midfield probably at the start would probably be Haas, Racing Bulls,
Alpine,
probably them more solidly in the midfield now that they have a Mercedes engine, and with probably Williams at the back of that. And then your final group are what I would call your newbies, and then the one we're going to talk about in a second would be Cadillac and Audi. I think Audi had a better overall program going on than Cadillac. Cadillac was, I think, just happy to be there and have a car that worked and turned laps, and Bottas and Perez really didn't push the car, I think, hardly at all. So,
I mean, for being a brand new team, though,
right.
I think
it's
they
damn
did
impressive.
everything
Yes.
that they wanted to do.
Yes, they ran a program. They ran a testing program, and they were able to tick off boxes and learn, which is all really that I think they wanted to do. So I would call that a success. And then there's Aston Martin and Honda, and oh my God, the longer it went, the worse it got. They were late getting to the shakedown. They only ran 50 some laps on the last day, but they got out and it seemed to be okay. But as the longer the Bahrain tests went, the worse the Honda engine problems seemed to get. The main issue is that their battery is vibrating and they cannot figure out why, or the turbo is vibrating. Something in there is vibrating to the point of, they had a press conference earlier today and Adrian Newey was coming out and saying, we don't think we can run more than 25 consecutive laps for fear of nerve damage to the driver's hands on the steering wheel. So that's a huge problem. They will show up. They will be there. They are in Australia. How much running they will do, we don't necessarily know. We are almost 100% confident they are not completing the race distance and will retire at some point. The question is when. Yikes.
So all of the engines are homologated at this point, I believe,
Correct.
including the Honda engine. So does that mean that these like really detrimental issues that they're having, does that mean that they're pretty much going to have to go to the FIA and get permission to fix the reliability side of this? Because that's not
Yeah,
as tightly regulated as the performance.
right. Reliability issues, there's some leeway. They can't do anything to performance. There are certain performance windows throughout the course of the calendar, I believe, where if an engine supplier wants to make an update for performance, they have to petition and then get approval, and then they do it.
And they have to be a
There's
certain
like
amount behind the leading
right,
cars. Yeah.
right. My guess is the FIA will grant Aston whatever they're looking for in order to get the thing so at least it runs. They haven't even been able to run it at its own full capacity yet. Even the laps they did run, the battery is supposed to hold up to 350 kilowatts. The most they've been able to do is 250. Um, Lance Stroll has come out and said that they think they are a legitimate 4 to 5 seconds off of the top running pace at race speed. So these are problems. They're going to have a hard time meeting the 107% rule. We haven't had that in 10 plus years since the days of HRT and Virgin when we were looking at those types of things. So I mean, it's a mess. It is a complete mess. Can Honda get in on top of it? The answer is probably going to be yes. I mean, we saw what they did with Red Bull. This was a team that was right at the front last year. They figured out the engine formula. It took them a while, but they got there.
Yeah,
But at
but
the
how many
same
seasons
time,
did that take?
right. And at the same time, I've also said, get your popcorn ready. The Fernando Alonso ticking time bomb has now
Oh, no.
moved to within 5 minutes to midnight. And oh, by the way, round 3 just happens to be the Japanese Grand Prix. And if they can't run a full race distance, I'm waiting to hear the team radio at some
It's
point.
like one of those
So
catastrophes that you can't help but just like keep watching it. And
yeah,
it's really ugly. And
and,
I hope for their sake that
it's
they get on top
yeah,
of it enough to at least finish a race distance soon.
right. Yeah, I mean, it is literally going to be you crawl before you can stand, you stand before you can walk, you walk before you can run type of evolution. Um, yeah, it just looked, it was just a house of pain everywhere you look at it. The last testing day, they literally only ran 6 install laps. They could not do anything of what they wanted to do. The car looks, from an Adrian Newey perspective, to be pretty cool in terms of the different aero and the approaches. But if you are a McLaren fan and you remember the old size 0 thing, and that was Peter Pedrumu, who was an Adrian Newey disciple, and now Adrian Newey is doing it again with a different Honda engine, and here we go again. And the main thing from the Honda side with what they have said is their test bank, or when they put the car on the dyno, it does one thing. When they get it out in actual track conditions, it's doing something completely different that they didn't anticipate. So the fix on this does not look like it is going to be quick or fast or anything in the near future. You can probably for sure write off the first 7 races, I bet, before you see
It's
anything.
brutal. It's a brutal
I
assessment,
mean,
but you're probably right.
that's what it would usually take. Like, you identify the issue, you got to test it on the dyno, you got to get it in a wind tunnel, you got to allocate resources to do it. Honda is not close to Aston Martin's headquarters because it's in Japan, so they're going to be shipping all this stuff back and forth to try to figure it out. Now with the issues going on in the world, shipping and moving of parts and everything becomes that much harder. So even if we get a green light and everything goes back to the way it is transportation wise, it looks, they're staring up at a very deep hole, and it is not where any of us thought it was going to be, especially given the fact that Adrian Newey has been with the team as long as he's been.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, we are going into this weekend and we really don't know what's about to happen. We are going to talk a little bit later in our second segment, after predictions, about how you are to watch your Formula One, because that is a big change for this year. I will share my experience of converting over up to date and what I think is going to happen. But that's kind of an unknown too, because until they turn all the things on, we don't know what's going to happen. So at least hopefully they get all the bugs out by the end of FP1. I'm kind of hoping, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. One thing that did come out, if you want to remember fondly the 2025 season, Drive to Survive has come out, and they've actually put it on Apple TV. So Netflix has gotten some sort of a permission to use its content on another platform in an effort to kind of, rising tides lift all boats. It kind of makes sense in a way. If you like the show and you're a Drive to Survive fan, like, that's cool. It's all here for you. I mean, pretty much the same formula is what they kind of do. I think the cars in the HDR10 that they are shot in on the television with the sound bar and everything, that you turn it up and it's really good. That they are top notch at that. You do get to see some interesting behind the scenes stuff. The most interesting one that I can remember was from, I was telling Cody this before we started recording, when they do the 8 hours that was the Las Vegas Grand Prix, and everybody remembers. I started watching that race at 9:00 and I didn't end it until 3 a.m. There is a portion where when McLaren knew that they were in trouble, and they crossed the line, and the guy, one of the Zach Brown's confidants, comes up behind him and goes, "You got to be kind of quiet about what you're about to say. Netflix is right there." And they caught that right on the hot mic. So that was actually pretty interesting. And you get to see, you did see the Christian Horner fall out, and they give him, it was kind of really the first time we'd heard anything from Christian since, all that had happened. So he got to say some of his own piece.
I was going to say, so I haven't watched any Drive to Survive. Christian Horner is still in it.
He's in it until he gets fired. He's in it just as he always is. Like, he's the guy that they put the microphone in front of, and he's moseying along, and then he gets fired. And then suddenly they give him one last thing. He's in his horse barn where they set up the studio to debrief him, and he says his piece on what he thinks happened. A lot of it is stuff that we've kind of already kind of speculated. He thinks that it was Helmut and Oliver Mitzlaff that all kind of banded together to push him out. He does not blame Max Verstappen directly. He doesn't blame Yas or any of that directly. So, and he was definitely as blindsided as the rest of us were. Like, nobody literally saw that coming, least of all him. So at least that's how they portrayed it. Whether or not any of all that's true, we didn't see like they didn't have the cameras like at the Red Bull place where he goes into the meeting and he's the team principal and he comes out and he's fired. There was no video of him giving the speech that was that he gave before he walked out of the building. So you didn't see necessarily any of that stuff. But the rest of it is, and I'm curious, and I put this in my notes. Did that cost 2 episodes to fall off? Because it went from the traditional 10 episodes. This year we only get 8 episodes.
I did hear that too, that it was shorter than anticipated, which doesn't make any sense to me because there was so much that happened last season. You could easily have done 10 plus episodes.
Right.
So.
You could have easily done it. And there was, again, there's a lot of skipping of the calendar back and forth. So if you kind of remember and you're going to go, well, okay. And there are, and if you've watched the show, and I've watched all of them, I've watched all 8 seasons now. You can almost kind of predict some of the arc. Like when they do the 2 number 1 drivers at McLaren story, and Oscar Piastri's dominating in Miami, and they made Lando look like he was scuffling in that race, when I'm like, do you all not remember he finished second? But okay, we'll just skip that. And then you knew like the Lando redemption arc was going to be at the British Grand Prix. Well, he really got his mojo back at the Monaco Grand Prix, not really the British Grand Prix, but whatever. We tell our story how we tell our story. And the other thing is I don't understand. The team radio is fun enough as it is. Why they have to do so much chopping of it up to try to think that they have to tell a story is just maddening to me, because, and can we just all agree, no engineer talks to their drivers when they are stopped on the grid before the lights go out. Nobody is talking to anybody. They're looking at the lights. They're not giving them any sort of remember to push hard, this race is really important, all of that other things, that happens later or different parts of the race. And a lot of like when they say it's now time to push is usually right before a pit stop, not in the context of them chasing another driver. There are times where that does happen. They did get the infamous Lando going to go chase Max down in Las Vegas. And he says, yep, that they didn't edit because they walked in it enough themselves. And I'm like, well, okay. I kind of pointed at the screen. I said, well, that one you didn't touch, did you? But yeah, I mean, it's fine. I mean, like I said, if you like the show, it's all there for you. There's plenty of wonderful, beautiful people, male and female, on both sides of the aisle to be there. Eye candy. It looks great. If you got into the sport because of it, I'm all there for you, and this is all here for you.
Yep. I will probably eventually get around to watching it. I'm still a little salty that my guy didn't win. Even more a little salty
well,
now.
He comes off looking pretty good. I think the consensus was that they were very respectful and very appreciative of the effort that he gave in the second half.
And so you'll have to confirm this for me. I have heard that this season of Drive to Survive barely features Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, who had his own really big story last year with floundering at Ferrari, and no Fernando Alonso, who, I mean, kind of had a quieter season, but he's such a personality. Like, I don't understand. Those are like three of the biggest names in the sport. I just don't. It seems weird that Cat's back at it. It seems weird that you wouldn't feature them in your show. Like, do they not want to be bothered? Do they want extra money? Did you not think that their story was somehow important? Like, so is that true that they're not really
there was not a lot of Lewis. I mean, there was a lot of Lewis in the beginning. There was a whole lot of the F175 event in London. And that was really kind of the Lewis going to Ferrari story, was kind of featured in the first episode. And then after that, they really didn't touch on Ferrari struggling, not struggling. And then, and I don't want to give too much away, but they brought Will Buxton back, which I thought was an interesting call considering he was off doing IndyCar commentary in 2025 and not there. And they couldn't either find somebody to do that role or Will had a contract and they had to make him do it. So Will is trying to provide what looks like ex post facto on the back end observations of commentary that are made to look like they're alive. And one of the things he said was that there was at one point where I went, no, that's just wrong. And you're not paying attention was, oh, Lewis Hamilton in the second half got on top of the Ferrari and was doing well.
Did you?
And I went, what? Like, did you watch him? It was not going well. They were fighting. They were struggling to make it to P3 in the constructors and barely did that at the end of it. So there's just some odd things that happen. And it is what it is. Like I said, I'm more than happy that the sport is where it is because of this show. I just wish that they would stick to the actual story and tell you what happened than try to make something else up, because what actually happened during the last season of 2025 was pretty damn compelling by itself.
Didn't need much doctoring.
No, not at all. All right. Well, I've pontificated enough on that. We're going to take a quick break. We'll re-rack. We'll come back. We're going to set up the Albert Park circuit. We have new track facts. We'll give you all the updates there. We'll talk about the weather. Last year's race was the chaotic one in the rainstorm. Is there any rain in the forecast for this weekend? We will tell you that. We will then take our stab. And again, I'm going into it with the hell if I know what's going to happen this weekend. But we're going to try to do predictions, and you can all laugh at us when this race actually unfolds. And then we will talk about a big thing. I'm going to leave it to the end simply because we got to talk in the United States about how you're supposed to watch your F1 and what you can do. Surprisingly, I think you can do more than you may initially think, and that's a positive. Because we didn't get a whole lot of clarity until just maybe a couple weeks ago. But from what I have seen, if it functions the way it's supposed to, it should be okay. And if you are an F1 TV member and remember how all that interface works, they still got you. So come on back. We'll talk about all that in just a minute.
You are listening to the Outlap F1 podcast, and we'll be right back after this quick pit stop. Grab your flu powder, broomstick, or apparate to your favorite audio streaming service to join the discussion on Hogwarts, a podcast, where Dan and his friends have in-depth chapter-by-chapter breakdowns of each Harry Potter novel. Join the group as they dive into the magical world and discuss plot points, analyze character development, and occasionally go off the rails. Whether you're a muggle who's new to the series or a pure-blood wizard who won't need a remember-all, Hogwarts, a podcast, brings everyone to the Great Hall for a magical discussion. Hogwarts, a podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back on in. If I was excited before, it's now to another level because we are at our first track facts of the season, which means we are going to see race cars on track and actually trying to be competitive with each other for the first time in over 100 days. You have found the Outlap F1 podcast. You've got Andy. I'm along with Cody tonight. This is our 2025 Australian GP preview show, and we're going to get into those Pirelli track facts. So, Cody, tell us about one of my favorite circuits on the calendar. I love the fact that this is the first race. Once again, it's back in its home. Tell us about Albert Park, located in Melbourne, Australia.
Yep, as you said, the Albert Park Street Circuit is located in Melbourne, Australia. Number of laps for the Grand Prix is 58, and the length of the circuit is 5.278 kilometers. That's 3.279 miles. And the tire selection from Pirelli for the first race are the softest compounds on offer. It's the C3, C4, and C5 compounds. And the track characteristics from Pirelli are a 2 out of 5 for traction, 2 out of 5 for braking, 3 out of 5 for lateral load, 3 out of 5 for tire stress, 4 out of 5 for track evolution, 2 out of 5 for asphalt grip, and a 2 out of 5 for asphalt abrasion. The qualifying lap record at the circuit goes to Max Verstappen, at least in the current configuration of the circuit. He did that in 2024 with a 1 minute, 15.915 seconds, while the race lap record under the current configuration is going to go to Charles Leclerc, set in that same year, 2024, with a 1 minute, 19.813 seconds. Overall, in Australia, we've been racing in Australia a long time, most wins in Australia. Or maybe these first ones for the drivers are for just Albert Park, or is this for Australia overall?
These are just for Albert Park. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So for the drivers, just for Albert Park. Most wins at this circuit goes to Michael Schumacher with 4 wins. He did it in 2000, 2001, 2002, and 2004. Sebastian Vettel, so a lot of German success here in Australia. Sebastian Vettel is in second with 3 wins, 2011, 2017, 2018. And then Jenson Button tied with him with 3 wins, 2009 and that 2009 and that fantastic Brawn season. And then again with McLaren in 2010, 2012. And then Lewis Hamilton and Kimi Räikkönen wrapping this one up, 2 wins apiece. Lewis did it once with McLaren, 2008, and once with Mercedes in 2015. And then Kimi Räikkönen did it once with Ferrari in 2007, and then once miraculously with Lotus in 2013. As I said before, F1 has been racing around Australia for a long time. So for the constructors, we're going to look at Australia as a whole. Ferrari has a whopping 14 wins in Australia. Too many years for me to list here, but they are followed very closely by McLaren with 13 wins. So, you know, it could be a tie coming up, you know, if we're really lucky and McLaren's pulling it together. We've got Williams, 6 wins here. I don't think they're going to increase that tally just yet. Mercedes might. They've got 4 wins here. In fact, 3 of those were consecutive, 2014, 15, and 16. And then Renault, 2 wins here. Both of them, actually, no, I shouldn't jump to that conclusion because I thought they were both going to be Fernando Alonso, maybe because of the years on there, but I'm not entirely sure that's true. So I'm not going to quote that. What's the circuit like, Andy?
All right. Speaking of ill-gotten stats, I did not do you any favors. I did not update the qualifying lap record. Actually, Lando Norris did beat that last year with a 1:15.096 because it was dry in qualifying. I just assumed because it was such a wet race, completely forgot about it. But anyway, what is this circuit like? It is a temporary facility, but Albert Park can be quite bumpy, but they've done a lot to kind of smooth out a lot of the bumps. There's been some resurfacing that's been done. So while the surface is often slippery, rubbering in as the sessions progress, it's a circuit that requires a well-sorted chassis, so we're going to see all sorts of weird stuff going on this weekend, I'm sure. Several spots on the track where the drivers require a reactive front end. We know we have that in these cars that allow it to chuck it into a corner. Melbourne is also one of the faster tracks. We talked about energy management, what that's going to do. With Lando Norris's 2025 pole lap set at an average of well over 250 kilometers an hour. We'll have to see what that looks like this year. As for the weather, like we said, last year was the wet and wild. Probably not going to see your intermediate or your wet weather tires this weekend. Qualifying, while it looks to be cloudy, only a 13% chance of rain, a high of 69 degrees, so right down the middle. And for the race day, sunshine and clouds mixed, a little bit warmer, high of 77, winds out of the south-southeast at 5 to 10, only a 4% chance of rain. So, yeah, at least for the first race, we're not going to put them way, way into the deep end. They're in it deep enough as it is. All right. So here we go. Now we're going to turn our attention and try to predict what the heck we think is actually going to happen with a rule set that we have no idea what is going to come out of this. And it could be crazy. We've also seen this race do some crazy things just in the race, at the end of the race. If you get a late safety car, if you get a late red flag, who the hell knows what the hell is going to happen? So it is all to play for. And we have reset our predictions game back to 0. I have to now defend my title, and Cody will be trying to get at me all throughout the season. All right. So we always start, as we are always apt to do, with the pole sitter. It's probably going to be one of the more unpredictable qualifyings. It's going to be a fascinating session. We were both kind of talking. I hope at some point we all get to watch it. I don't know if I'll be able to watch it live because I'll be coming back from something. So if not, I'm sorry. For those of you on social media who like to get my commentary on that, I will do my best if I can. If I make it back, I'll do it. If not, I'm going to just have to stay off of all that until I can actually watch the sessions. All right. Who do we think is going to take pole? First race of the season. Cody, who you got?
Well, yeah. Like you said, I'm not going to be able to watch it live myself. Just my luck. I've got a date with my beautiful wife, so I will have to watch this later. My qualifying pole sitter is going to be Max Verstappen, because I think this could be the only race this year where I can legitimately put everything in the Red Bull Max Verstappen basket and nobody can tell me you're delusional, because we're all delusional right now. We have,
right,
like you said, we have no idea what's going to happen. So this is entirely on vibes. We could be going into the next race and this hat will be gone, and I won't predict Max Verstappen for anything ever again. But for now, there's still hope. So my pole sitter is Max Verstappen.
All right, very good. I was impressed. I have to say, for Ford, just as you look at the dichotomy between where Ford is in its engine program and where Honda is in its engine program, and it's a chasm. Red Bull, to their credit, were able to run whatever program they wanted. I thought their reliability was more than satisfactory through those tests, and they showed some interesting deployment in some of the data that's there. So this may not be a far-fetched thing. That having been said, I'm going to go with probably the chalkiest answer that I can give right now. And all of the experts who supposedly think they know more than me are all saying it's still Mercedes' game to lose. Two things that emerged actually after the test. One, none of the customer teams got the latest spec of Mercedes engines, so there's going to be a performance uptick there. And two, Mercedes themselves had said that they were turning their engine down. So we're going to find out if this compression ratio thing is a thing or not. I would say it is if you happen to see the finishing order be Mercedes, McLaren, and an Alpine in the top 5, then you know it's a thing. If that doesn't happen, it's probably overblown like so many other things in Formula One, but we will see. That having been said, my pole sitter is going to be George Russell. I'm going to go chalk to the extent that I know it. I think Mercedes are the favorites coming into this. Let's see what that engine does when it's all the way turned out and ran full anger in Q3. I'm going to give it to George Russell, who I think is the most qualified of the two drivers. Nothing against Kimi Antonelli. He may be in P2 for all we know. It may be a 1-2. Could be all over the place, but that's where I'm going for pole position. All right. So our 2025 pole lap, as I mentioned, I apologize I didn't have it right in the stats, was a 1:15.096. That was set by Lando Norris last year. We don't think we're going to be touching those track records, at least certainly not for a little while. Cody, what you got for a lap time? Interesting to see what you got.
I agree. We're not going to be close to lap records, but I also think we're not going to be egregiously slower than the last generation of cars. It sounds like the cars are going to be kind of right in that zone that Formula One was hoping for, where it's going to be starting off a couple seconds slower than where we left off in 2025. So I'm going to just kind of pick a number between 2 and 3 seconds off from last year's time, and I'm going to go with a 1 minute 17.602 seconds.
All right, very good. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see how one lap pace, how much it's really different from race pace and how much management they have to do or have not to do. They definitely look like throughout the tests, like you had to wind yourself up for a lap. It's the out lap, no pun intended, with the show that you're listening to, is going to be very critical in qualifying. Yeah, thank you for that one. That was on the
Sorry,
fly.
couldn't
That
resist.
was not planned. But that having been said, I'm kind of with you in terms of lap time, but I'm a little bit quicker. I'm a little more optimistic, I think. I think we're going to get a 117.259. I think one of those engines will probably manage to get it right. But the other thing that I noticed in qualifying is how many laps got thrown away, or in testing rather, how many laps that were supposed to be performance laps would get thrown away because they couldn't complete it. So when the pressure's on, who can actually get their car to do what they think they want it to do?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the race, the crazy chaotic race last year ended up with Lando Norris winning it, Max Verstappen coming less than 2/10 behind him to finish second, and George Russell being the lucky Mercedes guy to get in third place last season. What do we think is going to happen this season or in this race? Cody, who's you got for race podium?
I am once again going all in on Max Verstappen taking the win, because I might not be able to say that again. However, I do really think that a lot of the teams that we saw strong in testing are going to be very strong, no matter what order they end up in. So I am going for 3 different constructors with 3 different engines, for that matter, to make up my podium. I've got Max Verstappen coming in first, George Russell coming in second, and Charles Leclerc coming in third.
All right, very good. Yeah, this one to me was very tough because I think it could be any one of those top 4. And I could point at things that I say are good about each of the top 4, and I can point at things that are not so great about the top 4. A lot of the teams I would describe, there's one of the best hockey announcers in the world. He unfortunately didn't get a chance to do the Olympics, but was Mike Emmerich. And one of his sayings was warming to the task. And that's kind of where I put my boys right now. The longer the test went on, I thought they got better. Are they good enough for the top step of the podium yet? I don't think so. They're not saying they are. I tend to believe what they want to say because they've been pretty transparent, at least in that. So I'm going to give it to George Russell. I'm going to say I think this is a Mercedes weekend. That having been said, I think local boy Oscar Piastri has something to prove from last year. He is going to want to do everything possible to atone for that spin last year. He doesn't get emotional. I think these cars may help his driving style ultimately later on because he doesn't get very twitchy in the car. He's just focused on what he has to do. So I'm going to have Oscar Piastri coming home P2 and P3 because I do think that Ferrari, what is it Deanna used to say? Once every 10 years they get it right. Well, it's been about 10 years since they've really been championship contenders, and we're kind of on schedule. They stopped their development early. I think if you're a Ferrari fan, you should be excited. You definitely have license to be excited as a Hamilton fan, as a Leclerc fan, and that start might be a real thing. We're going to find out. but I do think Charles Leclerc will factor in this race for sure. So I've got him coming home in P3. All right. So our fastest lap in the driver last year was the 2025 eventual world champion, Lando Norris. God, does that feel good to say? I'm going to milk that as much as I can this season with a 122.167 in the rain and the changing conditions. So what do we think our race pace is going to be? This is also interesting. Not necessarily sure. I'll go first with this one. I think the fastest driver may on the day be Kimi Antonelli. I think the rule packages, I think, will tend to suit the younger drivers earlier because they don't know any better and they don't know any different. So let's go there. Kimi Antonelli. I'm going to put a lap time in a 122.008. Cody, what you got?
I'm just going to put Max Verstappen in for pole win and fastest lap and hope that one of those will stick.
Okay.
I got him in for fastest lap.
I was going to say, you've got a pretty dominant weekend going on right here.
It's not even so much that I think it's going to be a dominant weekend as I'm just hoping maybe I'll get 1 for 3.
Okay.
But I mean, who knows if he gets all 3, I'll be sitting here on Sunday popping a bottle of champagne when we're doing our show. So
nice.
The time I've got for him is just a little bit slower than last year, but you got to remember last year was wet and wild. So I've got Verstappen doing it with a 1 minute 22.583 seconds.
All right, very good. All right, so for our bonus picks who are not in the podium, we've selected P5, P9, P11. This is also very much a crapshoot. I'll go first with this one. And I feel weird putting him all the way down here. He is the defending world champion, of course. But I just have this feeling that something weird is going to happen to him in qualifying. When Lando doesn't feel right with the car, the qualifying laps, like he can make it lap time, but he has to work at it. And I just have this weird feeling that he's going to be on one and something weird's going to happen at the end. So I've got him down in P5. I hope, obviously, I'm wrong there. But P9, I'm going to give this one to a team that I think nobody's really talked about because they really didn't do anything other than do their jobs, and that was Haas. They have a Ferrari power unit. They might get really good off the line with the Ferrari start system that they have and are entitled to. So I'm going to give them P9 and give them some love. And P11, it's going to probably be a tough run for Williams in the first couple races as they kind of get to grips with their package. Their car in testing was reported, and they agreed and they confirmed that it was definitely overweight. So do they get that car down to where it needs to be weight wise? And can they get on top of some of their overriding issues? Because they didn't do as much running as they would have liked. And this was a team that I had on my watch list. They may still get there, but I don't think they're going to do it early. So I got Carlos Sainz coming home in P11 for Williams, just outside the points.
All right. So I've got Lewis Hamilton in P5, which strangely enough feels like a continuation of where I was putting him roughly every race last year, or most races last year. I do think he's going to do much better with this generation of car, but we really have no idea where those top 4 are going to stack up at the moment. So 5th place for being in Ferrari, anywhere in that top 4, I think is a perfectly reasonable guess. And it is just that, a big guess. Same thing with P9. I'm going with Pierre Gasly because I think the Alpine cars are going to be much stronger with that Mercedes power unit. Pierre Gasly's been in the team for a long time and been in Formula One for quite a long time at this point. So I think he's going to be coming into this pretty comfortable and might be able to just squeeze a couple points out of this race. And then just missing out on the points, I've got Liam Lawson. Again, this one is just kind of on vibes. I think he's going to have a decent race. He's getting more into his element in that V-carb car, which seems like it'll be somewhere comfortably in the upper midfield. But yep, it's anyone's guess. We could be completely wrong on all of these, and it would be fun to see that.
I mean, and we also have to remember our good friend Valtteri Bottas has a 5-place grid penalty to serve from his Alfa Romeo days. So I don't think it's going to be a Cadillac. I know for sure it's probably not going to be an Audi. Hulkenberg maybe does something special. Who knows? But I can tell you for sure it's not going to be an Aston Martin because they have already said that. So our prop bet, it's not that we like picking on them.
But it is
It's
kind of
just going
fun.
to be, but it is going to be kind of one of those things. There will be lines on how many laps they run on race day. So we just kind of went with it and said, well, how many laps are Aston Martin? Now, is this both cars or are we doing the car that goes the furthest?
I would say this is the car that goes the furthest. So
Okay.
once the second Aston Martin has retired,
Okay.
that is the lap tally.
All right. I just want to make sure I knew how I had to score this. So I don't think they're going to want to run many laps, if hardly any laps. I think they're going to want to get to the garage, get the thing, take down the car, put it on the plane, and get it the hell out of here. That's my guess. So I think they're only going to run like the first 8 laps. I'm going to give them 8 because I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, but I don't think they're going to do much. But Cody, what you got?
Now that I'm thinking that they only did 6 laps at the end of testing, you're probably right. But I went with more the thought that they didn't get enough data in testing, so they're going to try to get as much data as they can now. So I got them going just over a quarter race distance with 15 laps.
All right. Yeah, I mean, even in the bleakest of the McLaren 2015 mess, at least they completed most of the race distance, at least in the first race. The engine was way turned down. They were way at the back. Button almost got points because there was so much reliability that race, if I remember right. And I'm like, wouldn't this be something? He's 30 seconds back. He might score a point. But those days, that's kind of where you're going to think of if you're an Aston Martin fan this year. I feel for everybody out there in that nation. I mean, that's a team that it all is there. It is not like they have not spent money. It is not that Mr. Stroll is not spent on that team. It's just
And for
it's just what
Fernando
happens.
Alonso is just getting the worst luck.
Yeah,
Just when you think he's had the worst luck in his career, it gets worse. And he's probably not going to even get a quarter of the way through this first race in this special new Adrian Newey car. So,
yeah. I mean, if
tough
Alpine
luck
get a
for-
podium at somehow this season, and it's not a freak rain podium like they got a couple years ago, I think the vein on that poor guy's forehead is gonna get some pressure. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
The radio will be interesting. All right.
Well, I'm here for that.
So, when and where can you watch your F1 this weekend? And the answer to that question is it depends on where you are in the world, because the rights are all kind of over the place. But since we are a US based podcast, we are going to talk about when and where you can watch your Formula One in the United States. And that is through Apple TV and, believe it or not, still F1 TV. So I will give you what I have gone through. So we had historically annual subscriptions to F1 TV. And when they made the Apple announcement, I got an email that basically said your current subscription is going to end, ironically enough, on the 6th of March, which is right before qualifying is supposed to start. Oh, yippee.
Yeah, we're going to get screwed right before all the action, right?
Well, I've done things to try to mitigate that. So if you sign up for Apple TV, and on most smart TVs, Apple TV is already included. It's in there. If you have an account, it's not that hard to sign up. They've tried to make this relatively easy to do. The nice thing that you can do, if you are a F1 TV stalwart and that's how you set yourself up and that's how you watch and that's what you're used to doing, your login for F1 TV does not have to change. What you have to do is you have to sign up for Apple TV, and then you have to link that subscription to your F1 TV account. It's actually not very difficult. It's once what you first want to do is you want to make sure you sign out of everything F1 TV related on all your devices. You want to make sure every device that you've got isn't logged in, because if it's logged in and you have an existing subscription, it could overlap and get confused, and you don't want to do that. Because the first time you use your historic F1 TV password, it's going to go, do you have a F1 TV thing to link to it? I did it on my Apple iPhone. I found it very easy. It just cross-linked, it talked to itself. And then if I go to my F1 TV account settings, everything was still there. All the devices that I had previously put in were still there. The same exact login works. But then when I go to subscriptions, it's got, right now I have 2. I have the one that's about to expire, and it says third party managed by F1 or by Apple TV. So I tested around. I went back to 2025 and I pulled races and I tried the multi-view and I tried onboards and I tried all the other stuff. The interface works the same way that it has. There's been really no change. So if you are used to F1 TV and that's how you want to do it, all you got to do is sign up for Apple TV. You don't even have to touch it, and you should be able to do it. That said, there is also an interface through the Apple TV app that will get you a lot of the same stuff, that if not more than what you would get with ESPN. They have calendar spots, and it's literally you sign up, and it's not around behind a paywall like MLS is, but it shows right up on your initial sign-in screen where it's like your username, and then right underneath it says Formula One. And if you click it, it's going to take you to when and where, and it's going to put in your own time when each of the sessions are. And their main links are going to probably take you to the F1 TV commentators, your Alex Jakes, your Alex Brundle, and Jolyon Palmer, those types of guys. Underneath it, if you scroll down, if you key into one of the sessions and scroll down, there is a separate button to watch the Sky feed. So if you want to listen to Crofty and Martin Brundle and Jensen Button and those types of people. Story came out today. You don't have to dip and dodge Danica Patrick. She is no longer going to be a Sky pundit, and the internet has rejoiced. I never was, all the races she would normally comment to is usually the races I was at. So I never really, she never really bothered me, but whatever. You don't have to worry about that. But there's a way to get there through the Apple TV app. My gut says if you want to watch through Apple TV, make that your main screen. If you're like me and you want to have onboards and other things going on while you're watching, you probably want to do that through the F1 TV app if you can. If you're new to all of this, I would start with the Apple TV app, get yourself familiar with how to do it, make sure you're comfortable with doing that, and then expand out to your multi-view stuff. Another thing that I have gotten confirmed, Multi-Viewer, which is a very popular program that's out there. It's unlicensed, but it's out there, will continue to work with the current F1 TV thing. So again, all you're doing is changing how you pay for it if you're an F1 TV guy or gal or whoever you are. That's the only thing that changes. So it is going to be different. It is going to take some getting used to. I've also seen, I guess Apple has got some really cool stuff with like some of their VR apps where like there's this virtual table where you can see the main feed and different onboards and stuff like that. Whether or not you really want to try to watch it that way, I looked at it and I said, oh, this is almost info overload for me. So I'm going to do my traditional setup. I'm going to have
overload for you who watches this on like 3 or 4 screens at a time.
Well, I can only do about up to 4, but I'm going to have my regular setup, which the setup looks like it's going to work. I'm going to have my main screen, my live timing here. I'm going to have my one on board here and then another one on my phone. And I'll probably hopefully get the same experience I've always been used to. So, and I have a backup plan in case the first one goes awry. But that's for me. And hopefully we don't have to see that works. But
just make sure you're going in and you're checking this stuff to make sure it works more than like 5 minutes before the race starts, just in case.
Well, that is probably the thing that's going to be the most frustrating. Is unfortunately a lot of that stuff isn't going to come on until like 5 minutes before the race starts. Because and what I don't know, here's what I don't know, and if they can get on top of this would be a really good thing. What F1 TV doesn't do well, at least it didn't historically do well, was go from stream to stream. Meaning, if you were watching the pre-race, you had to stop watching the pre-race at 15 minutes to and boot up the race part. And the pre-race thing is still going on, but you'd have to change actual streams. And then the same thing would happen with the post-race stuff. The main thing would stop. You'd have to refresh, go back and do a new stream. What I'm hoping Apple TV can get their arms around and can do, because I've seen it with some other ones that I've played around with, where and YouTube does this really well, is one stream ends, it goes to the next one, and you don't have to touch anything. So it would be awesome if you got your pre-race that started like an hour or hour and a half or whatever it is before. It just takes you to your main feed. The main feed race happens, that ends, and then it goes right into your post race. And you can control if you want to stop at that point, fine. But if you want to be like me and accumulate all the content you can, it can still go. That's what I hope would happen, but we're going to see. The honest answer is I don't know until they actually turn the thing on for real. But that's what I know about how to watch your F1 through Apple TV at this point. But when and where can you find your sessions? So we know where. But FP1 kicks off Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. FP2 Friday, midnight Eastern, 11 p.m. Central. FP3 kicks off again, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Prime time Formula One-ing if you're interested in practice. First qualifying of the season. I really hope I make it back in time to watch this. Midnight Eastern, 11 p.m. Friday for me in the Central Time Zone. And the pre-race, or the race itself, will start 11 p.m. Eastern. Let me double check that. I had it up. I might not have done my note correctly. I can, of course, now welcome back to weird moments in the stream. Yes, 10 p.m. Central, 11 p.m. Eastern is the race time. Apple TV or F1 TV are your places to watch in the U.S. for all that. Whew. Well, we are primed. We are ready to go. We hope to be back Sunday night to recap all of this and hopefully been able to watch as much as we can live. But Cody, any final thoughts? We are raring to go, man.
Yep, just that it's back and I am ready for it. I've been wearing my Red Bull hat all over the place, getting lots of comments. So I know there's a lot of other fans out there around here who are just as excited as me and you to see this get going. So yeah, I'm hoping that I get to come back to this on Sunday with that champagne and pop it for Max. But we're just gonna have to see, huh?
Well, if McLaren end up pulling this one off, I'll be just as annoying as I ever was. So anyway, we'll see what ends up happening, but I'm not expecting that. If they do, great. I would love. I would personally. My expectation is they can get one of them on the podium. That's a great weekend. But we'll see where this goes, and it's going to change throughout the course of the season. Like the best part of a new reg set is what you see today is not just going to be. You're not going to have 23 more races of just this. You're going to see changes. There's going to be development. There's going to be updates that happen, and different teams are going to bring different stuff at different times, and risers and fallers all over the place. So we're in for the long haul. 2026 is here. Here we go. All right. Till Sunday night. Enjoy yourselves out there. Take care of yourselves out there. It's a crazy world right now. And as always, folks, may all your laps be fast.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Outlap F1 podcast. If you like what you heard, click that subscribe button and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. If you want to connect with us outside of the show, check out our website at www.outlapf1.com. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at OutlapF1 Podcast, or email us at chatnow@outlapf1.com. As always, thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you on the next one.